Hey there, Status Coup Nation. Saturday. I try not to work on the weekends. I try, but I thought this was an important topic. I'm glad that Tim Black of the Tim Black Show, Tim Black TV, could join me on short notice. You know, Tim, I'm just going to be honest with you. Say it like it is. I'm a white dude, and I wanted to find a black person to talk about this because I don't really think there's going to be plenty of white people giving hot takes on the interweb about Joe Rogan. But in my experience traveling, covering a lot of stories in black communities, indigenous communities, I just feel I could have my opinion, but you have to be humble enough, and you have to elevate the voices that have a right to talk about this first, in my view. So that's why I wanted to have you on, because to me, there's multiple things going on here. Obviously, there's a new controversy with Joe Rogan. Old clips that I think people knew he had said the N-word on many occasions, but a kind of mashup of how many times he said the N-word has come out. So there's obviously mass controversy on the internet. I personally think, and you and I might be on the same page about this, that this is bigger than Joe Rogan, and this is about more than the actual N-word. But first, for people that do not know what we're talking about, I want to just play the clip. So Arie, hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Arie.
Arie. She is a longtime musician, very popular, has sold millions of albums. She, I guess, put together a mashup of, I think it was over 20 times that Joe Rogan has used the N-word. It was a mashup. So to be fair, we don't have the full conversations of every time he used it. But for those that haven't seen it, this is her video explaining why she wants off Spotify, and showing this video of Joe Rogan using the N-word many times.
I have a short message here about why I decided to ask my music be pulled off of Spotify. So check this out.
You know,
saying the word.
You've already said
is just like saying
she's calling you a
like this boy that he's a and starts calling them word. There should be a word like, especially like the word. That's our. He says and then starts saying how to use the word not the word saying and he couldn't say.
I empathize with the people who are leaving for the COVID disinformation reasons, and I think that they should. I also think that Joe Rogan has the right to say what he wants to say. I also think that I have the right to say what I want to say. So as an artist who builds, Spotify is built on the back of the music streaming. So they take this money that's built from streaming and they pay this guy $100 million, but they pay us 0.003% of a penny. Just take me off. I don't want to generate money that pays this. Just take me off. That's where I'm at. And I know that I'm actually, to be honest with you, surprised that my statements were picked up, because I thought people weren't really going to listen to me.
So that was Arie. She, put this together, and it's kind of taken a life of its own. We should say, Tim, within the context, obviously Rogan's been under fire for a lot of other stuff, particularly COVID misinformation on his show. Spotify, there was a campaign, I think a week ago, or time is a blur, to get him kicked off Spotify. For me, I can't speak for you. I think he has put out COVID misinformation. I don't think he should be removed from Spotify. I'm not for that, but I don't think he's beyond criticism either. But I wanted to separate the COVID stuff, and let's just get to this. What's your initial reaction? Because I saw you on your live stream. Again, this is not breaking news. A lot of people knew that he had used the N-word over and over and over again. But what's your initial thoughts to this video that was put out there and the significance as it comes to Rogan himself?
Well, first of all, Jordan, thanks for inviting me on, man. And I appreciate your stance on this, that you thought it was a good idea to bring someone black on the show to talk about this as well. And this is particularly because of what the controversy is surrounding. Like, to talk about Joe Rogan, anybody can talk about Joe Rogan. But since it's pertaining to the use of the N-word, yeah, I think, and I would feel the same way if it was some other term that specifically was, pointed at or derived from another group of people, maybe, I would do the same thing. But actually, bro, I had not watched the India Arie part. I just watched the mashup. So this is new to me. My reaction to this is, I'm disappointed, bro. Yeah, she threw money into it. I didn't know she did that. I'd already know, like you stated, I already know about Joe Rogan's history, that he's used some colorful language and has used the N-word a couple of times. I didn't know it was 20 times or whatever that number is. I had no idea it was that often. But I think it was a way to get a cheap laugh and have a cheap conversation at the expense of Black people, obviously. Even the clips that I saw of Joe using the word, he'd have guests on the show going, no, Joe, don't do it. Don't do it, man. Nah. Even his friends, like not just random people he was interviewing, but like close friends of the show would be like, man, we shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this, Joe. And he would just kind of just bravely go where no man has gone before. So I think it was sort of a thing where he was trying to generate buzz for his show. And he was having a good time. He also may have been high a couple of times because I know they routinely smoked weed on the show. That's not giving him a pass, though. So my reaction to this is, once again, I'm disappointed in India Arie that she made it about money. So what she's saying is, if she wasn't getting 0.003% of a penny per stream, she wouldn't give a shit what Joe Rogan said. Because that's what she said. She said because he's getting paid all this money to be on the platform, and she's not getting a lot of money to have her music on the platform, just take her music down. So I guess, I don't know, it just seems a little weird, bro. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And I think also, and, I've been seeing the Twitter, honestly, first of all, put aside the N-word thing for a second. Joe Rogan's not beyond criticism. And I think people are conflating criticizing Joe Rogan with trying to censor Joe Rogan. I'm not trying to, I don't think he should be pulled off Spotify. I don't think you do either. If you do, but I don't think you do.
No, I don't.
But there's become this sickness online, and I've heard you talk about it, of cult worship, where we're just our preferred hosts, whether it's podcasters, YouTubers, whatever. We can't look at things on a case-by-case basis because we have to think in absolutes. And people are even saying, well, the media, CNN, MSNBC, they're obviously trying to get rid of him because they feel threatened by him. So that means we shouldn't actually look on the merits on any of these things. In my view, two things could be true. I don't think CNN, MSNBC, the corporate media is going after Joe Rogan on the N-word because they are so virtuous and care so much about Black people.
What?
I don't think the corporate media is covering this at length because they just are indignant that this man has used the N-word 20-something times. They clearly are threatened by Joe Rogan. They clearly are threatened that, wait a minute, how is it that this guy got 11 million viewers and we're barely breaking 1 million or 2 million? So that could be true. But on the other end, in my view, and I'm not Black, but I have traveled the country for 6 years. I have covered a lot of stories in primarily majority Black communities. This conversation has come up where it has been explained to me. I mean, I have always said N-word. I would not use the actual term as a white person, but I've had these conversations with Black people, and to hear how painful and how offensive it is for a white person to say it, it has always, it has just reinforced to me that there really is no appropriate context for a white person to be using the N-word. I guess you could say in historical movies or films, from the, period pieces, slavery, civil rights movement. Obviously, the white characters are going to be dropping the N-word because it's about racism and slavery and oppression. Right. But to me, I don't get why you can't criticize Joe Rogan because he's wrong here while also I'm not calling for censorship. Nuance has been lost in my view.
Yeah, I agree. It has been lost. And to say someone, is above criticism, that's crazy. That's some terrain we don't want to go into just because you like a guy. I mean, come on, man. Anybody's fallible. He admits several times he screwed up.
Yeah.
He said, hey, I fucked up, man. I shouldn't have done this. I'm wrong. So to defend him to the point where you're upset that Jordan and I might cover it, and believe me, no, I had a couple of Black folks, more than a couple, maybe a handful of Black folks on Twitter that didn't want me to cover it at all. just because they didn't know how I was going to cover it, I guess. I guess they thought I was going to fall for it and be like, cancel Joe. Nah, man, like this is not, once I agree with you again that I don't think this is to help Black people at all. In fact, it's insulting because we got real shit going on. And I would take having, I don't know, the water in Flint being clean. I would take having qualified immunity being gone. I would take reparations, a Black agenda, some policies directed to Black people to close the racial wealth gap. I would take that any day over canceling Joe Rogan or holding his feet to the fire. This is all politically motivated. And I think he's a threat to the establishment because he generates so much damn traffic and eyeballs and eardrums, and that's what it is. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
I wanted to ask you, because I know you did a video, I think it was this week, reacting to Whoopi Goldberg, because Whoopi Goldberg on The View made some comments basically saying the Holocaust wasn't about race. It obviously offended a lot of Jewish people because in the context, I mean, Hitler was trying to exterminate the Jewish people on the basis of race. So she apologized. I don't know. I don't watch The View, but I saw the clip. It seemed sincere. It seemed like she genuinely didn't mean anything by it. There was no negative intent behind it. She just was misinformed or thought about it or just, didn't realize the historical context. And she was slapped with, I think, a 2-week suspension or something like that. I'm Jewish, and I actually appreciated that she owned up to it. I appreciated that she admitted she was wrong. I mean, she's a millionaire. It doesn't matter that she's going to get suspended, but I don't think she should have been suspended. So I look at that, and I don't know. Don't we want people in society to actually be open if they're wrong, to actually be open to new information? Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Rogan's under fire, period. Like COVID, other things. So I don't know Joe Rogan. I don't know, his apology. We'll play some of it in a bit. It seems sincere, but, the timing is interesting that he's apologizing now. I don't know why he's apologizing now, but he apologized. But I want to ask you, what is that fine line? Because it's not only that he used the N-word. I mean, he also said something about me and my friends were high and we were going to see Planet of the Apes. And we don't know, we were so high, we got dropped off into a Black community in Philadelphia. And I thought I was in Planet of the Apes. It was just like, it was not a good thing to say. Also, to me, it's not only about the N-word. I mean, he's had Gavin McInnes on of the Proud Boys, Gavin McInnes and the Proud Boys. I mean, I got the quote right here, Colin, if you could cue this up. Gavin McInnes of the Proud Boys has said, "I love being white. It's something to be very proud of. I don't want our culture diluted. We need to close the borders now and let everyone assimilate to a Western white English speaking way of life." So that's people he's hosting. He's hosted Alex Jones. Do I need to say much about Alex Jones? I'm not censoring him. I'm not telling him who to have on, but he's not beyond criticism. So I wanted to ask you, with Rogan in particular, to me, it's not only about that he's using the N-word. There's this other stuff too.
Yeah, the Gavin McInnes part, that's kind of tough. That's white supremacist 101 right there, boy. That's tough. I think that Joe Rogan has, in the past and maybe even in the present, done a little bit too much to try to get viewership. And there are other comedians as well. Adam Carolla comes to mind, a couple others that use race and they walk that thin line, brother, and they step over the line often. A lot less now that it's gotten bigger. And that's sort of like one of the things about the shock jock. And he comes from that background. I mean, him and Alex Jones are really close friends. So I'm sure he's gotten some of his advice from Alex on how to navigate, the space, how to get his podcast popping, how to get more attention. And now that he's become super successful beyond his wildest dreams, like, I don't believe at all he ever thought he'd be this big. Like, he said a lot of shit and then he ends up this big and it's like, oh, I got all that stuff to give it up. Same thing happened with Howard Stern. Howard Stern, before he got the American Idol thing, he had to go back and clean the internet. Like, that was part of the contract. He had to go back, delete a lot of content because now he's in another space and he's got all this racy content that just doesn't jive with advertisers. So it's not that unusual. What do I think about him having those guests and allowing those conversations? Hey, man, it's wrong. It's indefensible. I wouldn't defend it. And I think people just need to recognize that the guy fucked up, that he said some things and did some things he shouldn't have done. If you want to listen to him, that's on you. I'm not calling for him to be canceled though, because you could just hit click off or stop or not watch.
That's the point. And this is the last point I'll make on Rogan, because I want to get to something that I think is deeper that you were talking about on your live stream. And by the way, folks, smash that like button if you can. We'd like to get this out to more people. By the way, if you don't know Tim Black's show, you got to go subscribe. Tim Black TV on YouTube. He does great work. He covers a lot of like Status Coup. He covers a lot of stories the mainstream media does not cover. And by the way, that YouTube does not elevate. YouTube has buried his channel. YouTube has buried this channel. So make sure you subscribe to Tim Black's show. But also, I'd like to point out to the free speech absolutists, free speech does not mean freedom from responsibility. So free speech, again, does not mean you don't have any responsibility for what you host. So I think in some ways, Rogan has wanted to have it both ways. He's wanted to say, I'm just an entertainer, or I'm just having conversations. But it's your choice who you're having those conversations with. So I think there is some value in having people on that disagree with you or diametrically opposed to you, if you're actually going to challenge them on some things. Like if I had Alex Jones on, which I probably wouldn't, trust me, it wouldn't be a pleasant conversation for either of us. Same thing goes for those other people. So I don't think a casual conversation means just have on people to have them have 3-hour infomercials where you're not going to really challenge them on much. Now, his fans would say, well, he does push back somewhat. Listen, I've seen some clips of him having Proud Boys on. I've seen some clips of him having on Alex Jones. I'll play this clip right now. I don't know if you saw this. He recently had Jordan Peterson on for a bizarre conversation about what is black. Colin, if you could play this.
Depending on who you ask, either you're a voice of reason and rationality and personal responsibility, or you're a voice of intolerance and bigotry and anger and hateful
sexual oppression.
What did Michael
prejudice,
Eric Dyson call you? A mean angry white man.
And a mean angry white man. Yeah,
hilarious.
Yeah.
You're not mean at all.
Yeah.
That's what's dumb about that statement. It's you're not mean at all.
I am white. Actually, that's a lie too. I'm kind of tan, and he was actually not black.
If you're tan,
he was sort of brown.
Am I? Because I'm darker than you.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. But neither of us are white.
Well, I'm Italian.
And he was brown, not black.
Well, isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's really weird.
The black and white thing is so strange because the shades are so
tan and brown.
There's such a spectrum of shades of people. Unless you're talking to someone who is like 100% African from the darkest place where they're not wearing any clothes all day and they've developed all that melanin to protect themselves from the sun. You know, even the term black is weird. And when you use it for people that are literally my color, it becomes very strange.
Yeah.
You know,
this is true.
So my point in playing that clip wasn't to say, censor it because they had a ridiculous conversation. By the way, there's a difference between KKK, Proud Boys, racism, and just ignorance. And to me, that kind of conversation, should they be allowed to have it? Yeah, they should. Is it ignorant? In my view, yes. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a hard clip to watch because it's full of bullshit. I mean, black people are considered black people because America considered us black people. I mean, we were Africans, so we were given the title as black, and then we were given some other titles that Joe Rogan is now on fire for. We didn't give those titles to ourselves, so did act as if that these titles make no sense. Well, that's debatable, but this is how we refer to each other in America, and that's what it is, and this is where we are. So yeah, Joe Rogan. I don't like when people hide behind the "oh shucks," just having conversations, and I can say whatever I want. No one gets to hold me accountable. No one gets to ask me questions. No one gets to criticize me. I think that's a cop out. Grown ass people. Grown-ass men, Joe Rogan and I are about the same age, got about a couple years, but we're grown-ass men, and we know what we're saying, and I'm accountable for everything I say with you, Jordan. I can't say, hey, man, I'm just a show host. What do I know? I don't know nothing. Well, if you don't know anything, shut up. Don't talk about important shit if you admittedly don't know anything.
Right.
So you're not qualified to have a conversation if you can't be held accountable. No, had a conversation. When you screw up, own up, and go from there.
And I will say, yeah, we could play some of it now, just to be fair to Rogan. This was his apology.
Hello, friends. I'm making this video to talk about the most regretful and shameful thing that I've ever had to talk about publicly. There's a video that's out that's a compilation of me saying the N-word. It's a video that's made of clips taken out of context of me of 12 years of conversations on my podcast, and it's all smushed together, and it looks fucking horrible, even to me. Now, I know that to most people, there's no context where a white person is ever allowed to say that word, never mind publicly on a podcast. And I agree with that now. I haven't said it in years, but for a long time, when I would bring that word up, like if it would come up in conversation, instead of saying the N-word, I would just say the word. I thought as long as it was in context, people would understand what I was doing. Like that context was part of the clip we were talking about Red Fox, how Red Fox said that word on television in the 1970s, and how times have changed so much since then. Or about how Richard Pryor used it as one of the titles of one of his albums. Or I was quoting a Lenny Bruce bit, or I was quoting a Paul Mooney bit, or I was talking about how Quentin Tarantino used it repeatedly in Pulp Fiction. Or I was talking about how a Netflix executive, ironically, used it because he was trying to compare it to another offensive word, and he said it out loud, and they fired him. Not calling anybody or just saying the word out loud. I was also talking about how there's not another word like it in the entire English language, because it's a word where only one group of people is allowed to use it, and they can use it in so many different ways. Like if a white person says that word, it's racist and toxic, but a black person can use it and it could be a punchline. It could be a term of endearment. It could be lyrics to a rap song. It could be a positive affirmation. It's a very unusual word, but it's not my word to use. I'm well aware.
So, I mean, it's 5 minutes long. You could watch the whole thing on Instagram. I want to move on to why I think it's deeper than Rogan, but I just wanted to get your thoughts. Because to me, when I listened to that, my thought as a white guy is, well, you could have done everything you just said, but just said N-word instead of actually saying the term.
Yeah.
Like you could have literally talked about why it's such a unique word, why, talk about other people, using it with just saying N-word rather, because you're not Red Fox, you're not Richard Pryor.
There you go.
Your thoughts?
I agree. Nailed on the head there, Jordan. Pretty good. Also, it needs to be mentioned that, the reason why you don't use the word, bro, is because they were yelling at people while they dismembered them, like cut off body parts. It may be the last word. In fact, I know, obviously, people that were getting lynched and they were using that word for them, boy, it was the last thing they heard on this earth before leaving it. So it's not when you start really thinking about the context of the word, it's not just what was on Richard Pryor's album. It's also what was on the lips of overseers. And that's real talk. That's, so you start getting into an area that's very uncomfortable for everyone. You know what I'm saying? So once again, as you pointed out, Jordan, he didn't have to use it. And I don't like the fact that he's not being totally honest. And look, I'm not going after the guy, but it sounds a little bit like he's deflecting. Like, come on, man. Yeah. Like he's kind of offering, like, he's trying to placate people with the oh shucks and a little bit of the come on, man. It's just wrong, man. Yeah, we know other people use it. Like you pointed out, he didn't have to use it to describe it. That's why there is an N word,
right,
to describe the actual word, so you don't have to go down that route. It was just to get publicity. It was just to entice viewers. I wish you would own it to that extent. That would be a full ownership of it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that he apologized. We could get into the reasons he did. I don't think it has nothing to do with he's under attack for other things too. I mean, let's not be naive that doesn't influence that he's been under attack over COVID and other things. I appreciate that he apologized, but it also, like, if within the first minute you're saying, well, it was taken out of context, but then you're saying, but there is no context that white person should say it, then you shouldn't be like, well, it was taken out of context. I just shouldn't have said it in any context. So, Tim, I want to move on because to me, you and I are on the same page on the deeper level. So to me, this is beyond Joe Rogan. To me, CNN, MSNBC, all these corporate outlets that are on a crusade against Rogan, and they are. I think what Rogan has said and done is wrong, but I could also acknowledge I don't trust the corporate media's motivations. I don't think they're truly covering this because they're so virtuously against Joe Rogan. They see him as a threat, and if they can, they'd like him removed. But I don't see CNN. They're so aghast that he's used the N-word. I'm not watching CNN all day. I don't see the same fervor from CNN about Amir Locke, a 22-year-old black guy who was just executed by police in Minneapolis. Do you see that on CNN? Breonna Taylor was sleeping in bed. Amir Locke was a 22-year-old black man. The police in Minneapolis executed a no-knock warrant, similar to Breonna Taylor, and he didn't know who it was. They say, oh, well, he went for his gun. Very similar circumstance to Breonna Taylor. They're not saying shit. They're not worried about that racism. CNN, MSNBC, Tim, they're aghast at what Joe Rogan has said. You see any coverage that Joe Biden, the president, is giving police more money? I mean, the list goes on and on. I'll get off my soapbox. You don't see this consistency, but corporate media is upset about Joe Rogan using the N-word. Joe Rogan shouldn't have been using the N-word, but they will not cover actual systemic racism because they're part of propping that up.
Yes, absolutely. They're part of propping it up, and it is an insult, because as we said before, real issues are going on. Amir Locke, I covered it yesterday. Young man sleeping on the couch, and the cops startled the hell out of this young man. First of all, they got the wrong guy. It's not who they were looking for. So they're in the house where he is. He's on the couch under blankets. He can't see them. He's so asleep that they kicked the couch to wake him. And they're making all this noise. He reaches for his gun under the blankets. I think he didn't even see him, Jordan. So, I don't know if CNN covered it because I don't watch CNN. At least I try not to watch them. But
I can tell you they ain't covering it like they're covering Rogan.
Hell no, they ain't covering. But that's the thing, brother. So they care more about the words. So this is like a canard, right? So they want us to go after, and this is why it's insulting to us. To me, I speak for myself. They want us to care about this because they want to use it, right? They want to use it to take down Joe Rogan. I'm not going to give them the satisfaction of playing into that because I know that there are bigger fish to fry. I know there are bigger issues for us to focus on. And if they want to gaslight us and use our emotions against us in order to take down the guy who just won't go their way, well, hell, they can do that without our help. We need to focus on the issues that matter to us, and this Joe Rogan thing, let it sort itself out. I'm not sitting around obsessed with what Joe Rogan says on his podcast. As things come up, like you do, Jordan, I cover them or I don't. I usually don't because I got other shit to cover. I'm not too worried about them, but yeah, their hypocrisy is showing. If they really cared about black people and didn't consider us to actually be in words, maybe then they'd cover shit that really affects our communities and that we want to see covered. Because most black people do not give a damn about Joe Rogan's podcast or what he said last week.
Right. And I'd also point out, President Biden, he should thank his lucky stars. He wouldn't get elected without black people. The data is the data. He won Georgia because more black people came out in Atlanta for him, thanks to Stacey Abrams. She's not my cup of tea politically, but she sure as hell got a hell of a lot more black people to come out, particularly in the Atlanta suburbs for Joe Biden. In Michigan, he won Michigan in large part because Detroit had more black voters come out for him than they did Hillary Clinton 4 years earlier. With Milwaukee, more black people came out for him in Milwaukee, which helped him win Wisconsin. So what does Joe Biden do? Like every other Democratic politician, he went to the churches during the campaign. He put out a whole lot of bullshit, about how, they're the backbone of the Democratic Party. He totally deflected away from the crime bill and every other racist thing he's done. And when he's got in, since he's been president, I mean, granted, he's been dealing with a pandemic, but has he gone out of his way for a specific black agenda, which you talk about? Hell no. But you see them focused on Rogan and the N-word. Yeah. None of this. And to me, that is the deeper thing. It goes back to Flint. All the resistance liberals, when Michelle Wolf, if you remember that comedian, at the end of the White House Correspondents' Dinner, she dropped the mic. Flint still doesn't have clean water. Boom. They were all aghast on Twitter for that night, tweeting about Flint. The next day, they went back to not giving a damn that Flint doesn't have clean water. So that's the situation. It doesn't mean that Rogan shouldn't be criticized. He should. If you're a Rogan cultist in the chat and you can't handle any criticism of him, I don't know what to tell you. That's tribalism. That's cultism. You can criticize Rogan or anyone else without calling for them to be deplatformed. But I think the deeper issue is here. Our media pretends to care about racism. They don't actually care about the systemic racism that I just listed off.
Yeah, we don't know. When I talk about racism, I try to educate my viewers and let them know, Jordan, I'm not talking about somebody in front of Walmart using the N-word. I'm talking about education. I'm talking about employment. I'm talking about healthcare. I'm talking about law enforcement. I'm talking about all the ways that institutions interact with our lives. I mean, you go in for an interview and just not get the job and don't know what's going on, don't know. Well, because you walked in, you were a black guy, Timothy. No one knew. You had that, so these things happen. But it's also insulting Jordan out because Jim Clyburn just introduced HR 301, I think it is, right? So this is what they want to make, lift every voice and sing. They want to make that like the national hymn. We got all these other issues, Jordan, that we could be looking at. And time after time, what they do to black people is placate us with vacuous symbolic nonsense. I mean, it's not that. It's Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. It's Maya Angelou on the quarter, but it's no policy. Like, where's the policy that really matters? I mean, I'm pretty sure. Now, I know maybe there's some black folks who are delusional, but most black people that I know, they could say, Joe Rogan could say whatever word he wants to say, and we could actually get some policies. Like, we want that. And you can keep the quarter and keep the money. Harriet Tubman don't want to be on your money. She was sold for money. What makes you think she would want to be on money? Mm-hmm. That's what she was traded for money. So it's just, as you pointed out, the Democratic Party is so antagonizing, man. It's such a one-sided relationship. They threaten us with the Republicans time after time. The Republicans really hate you. They're the real racist ones. I don't know. Maybe they're the more upfront, more blatant, but implicit bias and explicit bias, they're both bad. And implicit would be what the Democrats exude when they don't know, when they unconsciously, treat us like garbage.
Right. No, I mean, the difference is one is just in your face. Yeah, we're not pretending to be for you. The other is pretending that you are the backbone of the Democratic Party, that we are the party of voting rights, this and that. Listen, if they really wanted to push voting rights, then there would have been a way to wrangle Sinema and Manchin. Okay. Sure. You think Lyndon B. Johnson, he was a bastard on a whole lot of other things. You think Lyndon B. Johnson would allow Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema to block his agenda on voting rights or social policy or economic policy? No. If you want to use the bully pulpit of the presidency because you feel a moral responsibility to a certain community or to a certain cause, that's what you do. Maybe you'll lose, but you actually fight.
Right.
And Biden's not fighting. The other thing, Tim, I wanted to ask you about, we talk about corporations, Spotify's a corporation, this and that. But it's the same thing with during the George Floyd protests. I was covering it on the ground, protests in New York City. You saw in, JP Morgan Chase or Bank of America in their window, Black Lives Matter. The same banks that have literally been charging black people more for mortgages and other loans forever. You've seen that's just one example of corporate banking. You see Starbucks and these other companies that are so woke, Black Lives Matter, this and that. You talk to black workers, how they're treated. you will hear an entirely different story. Amazon, another company that puts out all this PR fluff, rainbows and sunshine. There's one commercial I constantly see. A nurse, Amazon put me through school, and the end of the commercial, he's on the beach looking into the sunset. I've gone to Staten Island's warehouse. There's majority black and brown workers. They're being carted off on stretchers because of the heat. There's black and brown workers literally sleeping in their cars because they're homeless, out working at Amazon. I mean, I could go on and on, but the point is, yes, two things could be true. We could react to words. Again, we've already addressed Rogan and the N-word stuff, but when are people going to actually start demanding more, not just from the Democratic Party, but from the leadership of this country, from the corporations? That's why I call it the United Corporations of America right behind me, because the corporations are buying off these politicians. And, sure, CNN, I'm just pointing out CNN, it's other media going after Rogan right now, but they don't cover these issues we're talking about because most of them are white. Most of them are making six figures, and most of them have never gone to these communities to actually see what's going on the ground.
Yeah, the bottom line tells them not to cover it. It's not good for it's not good for the advertisers. It's not good for business, so they don't cover it. And that's the bottom line of it. Not only LBJ wouldn't allow people to get in the way of his agenda, neither would Trump. And I didn't vote for Trump. I'm not a Trump supporter. You got to say that every time we bring up anything, but just his pettiness alone, whether he really wanted it or not, the fact that you're in the way, I'm going to go down there and ruin your campaign. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure you lose an election. That was the attitude Trump had because he would have taken it personal. So if we're the ones who got Joe Biden elected and he cares so much about the black community, has such an affinity with the black, he only got into politics, Jordan, because he wanted to help the blacks. That's what he says all the time when he tells these long, winding stories with no real meaning. Somewhere he puts in there about the black relationship or the black community. But at the end of the day, he doesn't take it personal that they're losing voting rights. Right. That these new rules greatly more impact black folks and poor black people in general, poor black people more specifically. He didn't take it personal enough to confront these issues months ago, almost a year ago. I mean, this has been going on for quite some time. So it's a slap in the face once again. And to your point, bro, there's a lot going on in this country that needs to be covered. I think people would be more concerned with it, Jordan, if people knew about it. That's part of the reason why they don't hear much. People don't get a lot of status popping up. Our status is popping up in their feeds because they don't want people to know about this stuff. I think people would be, as you pointed out on my show, and upon reflecting, maybe more people would be concerned if they knew about people passing out at Amazon. But who's going to tell them? It ain't going to be Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid. It's going to be Quiet Jordan and Tim Black to tell them.
But also, let's keep it real. You and I have had this conversation. It's also platforms like this that are not elevating that kind of stuff. So, for example, I'm having to walk this tightrope where I'm saying to myself, all right, I'm going to cover more stories that are kind of trending. I'm going to dip my hat more into, some more of the, I guess you could say, hot take pool, because I want to get more eyeballs to the channel so that they could see all this other stuff that I cover, like the Amazon workers trying to unionize, like Flint water crisis and cover up, like, the union drives that I'm covering, like when I went down to Dallas to cover Botham John, another black man murdered by police. So basically on YouTube, because YouTube is not going to elevate those stories. When I say YouTube, I mean Google. Google owns YouTube. YouTube's algorithm is elevating hot takes, reactionary bullshit, conflict, people fighting with each other. They're not elevating the exploitation of black people. I just did an interview with Leonard Peltier's attorney. Okay. Leonard Peltier is a Native American, 77-year-old who's been in prison for 46 years. 46 years. Leonard Peltier has been in prison. No evidence for the conviction that he killed 2 FBI agents. In fact, the U.S. prosecutor that was part of the team that put him in jail has come out saying, we fucked up. There's no evidence. He's still in jail. He got COVID in jail this week. Again, 46 years in jail, no evidence. I did that on YouTube. Nobody saw it because YouTube doesn't. I mean, my marketing guy told me, yeah, barely anyone even got a notification for that video. So that's what we're dealing with too. People avoid covering these substantive stories. People avoid covering stories that matter because not just YouTube, but big tech platforms bury them.
Yeah, that's the sad truth, buddy. You know, and I had to kind of come to that conclusion as well, is that I was upset with the progressives so much about it because, I'm like, why aren't they covering black issues? And then I kind of, after a while, I took a look at it. I said, you know what? Part of it is they know they can't get any reach on it. Like, they know that YouTube is not going to promote it. It's not going to reach eyeballs. And that's not the algorithm. Like, once you spend a lot of time criticizing Democrats, YouTube decided who to send your content to. Like, this is your base. So unfortunately for me, that base doesn't, some of the issues that I talk about, they want to hear me go after Biden and Jim Clyburn. They really don't want to hear me talk about Botham Jean. They don't, Tamir Rice or these other issues as much. So that's also a part of it. I like the strategy. And you know how to do this, Jordan. Just weave in the Amazon point at the end of your video. Use those examples and start whetting their appetites and use your cue cards and shit and say, well, hey, this is related to this in somehow, some way. But I've been using that way to try to get attention to videos, and I know won't beat the algorithm by covering more middle of the road content, but always cloaking it in blackness about black issues and making a point to say, similar to Joe Rogan, hey, I'm covering this. Remember, this ain't the real shit. The real shit is we can't get bank loans. And we only own 2% of the wealth in the country we've been in for 400 years. That's the real story. And if Democrats really cared about us and didn't want to treat us like N-words, they would help change that instead of letting Clyburn push us some damn hymn that we don't want or a holiday for a holiday we already celebrated.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's not forget the Kente cloth where they kneeled wearing Kente cloth.
Bruh.
Yeah, that was something. I don't want to keep you all day on the weekend. So my last question. Sure. This Rogan thing's going to go on. Like I said, I'll cover it where I think I need to. But deeper than Rogan, what are some of the issues that you feel myself, others need to start covering more? Because there's more problems in the black community than just police terrorism. That's obviously up there. Yeah. But that's just one thing. So we don't really hear, there aren't a lot of big, popular on the left, black hosts. Let's just keep it real. It's a lot of white folk. So what do you want to see covered more, whether it's sexy or not, because it's important to cover?
Well, one thing, and I appreciate you asking the question, brother. One of the things I focus on, I try to focus on economics. Everybody's concerned about pocketbooks. They're concerned about being able to pay their mortgage, pay their rent, make ends meet. And when we start talking about the wealth gap between white folks and black folks, it starts like, wow, this doesn't make sense. I mean, I've had people that didn't realize that black people, by and large, didn't get the GI Bill. Now, they went to war. They just did not qualify for the GI Bill because they had stipulations in the GI Bill that domestic workers and farm workers couldn't get it. It just so happens that was most of our professions were in that area. So there were all these loopholes that people to this day don't know. They don't realize that we didn't, that the Homestead Act. They didn't realize that the freed slaves didn't get any property, but the Homestead Act, they got 160 acres to white owning property owners, white property owner men got 160 acres. Those types of facts, once we start covering those types of things, we'll start making people understand, because I think sometimes people truly are ignorant to what America's done to black people intentionally with policy. This ain't about Jordan as an individual. It's about our government, just like it is when we talk about what's going on in other countries. You and I aren't dropping bombs on anyone, but what our government has done in the past and what it's continued to do, those are the types of issues will give people a broader understanding. And also hold them damn Democrats accountable, bro. If they're getting over 95% of our votes, if they need us to win elections, they need to do right by us, which is policy driven. So as long as you try to add that into your mix of content, because you already do great content, Jordan. I think that will go a long way into helping get the word out on important issues.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the truth is for people like you and me, because we generally don't follow news of the day in terms of kind of the most sensational story or the most kind of popcorn story. We don't drop all caps in our headlines 24/7. Where, I mean, honestly, I did a video this week on Joe Rogan. My natural inclination is not to cover this on the weekend, but I also am saying, you know what? I'm going to do what I have to do to get people to open the door to this channel, because I want them to see all the other stuff we're covering, like Amazon workers fighting for a union, Starbucks workers winning a union. I mean, hell, Tim, I was on the ground in October and November. I was in Iowa covering the John Deere workers who were on strike. There was a lot of white workers. There was a whole lot of black workers on strike for John Deere. Then I went to Buffalo. I was on the ground covering India Walton, who was running for mayor in Buffalo, a socialist. She unfortunately lost. I covered the Starbucks workers trying to unionize. I covered the nurses who were on strike. All of this on the ground, which, by the way, costs a lot of money. And I was going live to 200 to 300 people, not because people don't care, but because people don't see that shit in their YouTube feed. Just like people aren't seeing in their YouTube feeds you covering Amir Locke, a 22-year-old black guy just getting killed in Minneapolis, or the countless other stories you covered. In my experience, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. When I was on the ground covering those issues, the John Deere strikes and some other things, just timing-wise, when I was there, I wasn't getting a lot of views, but timing-wise, I was lucky enough to get on Kyle and Crystal's podcast. Yeah. All of a sudden, I'm on the ground because they have a big audience, because they're not, suppression doesn't hurt them as much as channels like us. All of a sudden, I get like 2,000 new YouTube subscribers in 2 days, a whole lot of people signing up as paid members, and the comments start flooding. And holy shit, how come I've never seen this? I love this channel. You're the only one out there. So it's not that people don't, I genuinely believe it's not exclusively that people don't care about these issues. They either don't see these issues, or they don't, or they don't see it, or they don't know about it. And that's a bad combo either way for information, because contrary to what people think, the most important issue in America is not Joe Rogan. It's the things we're talking about. Tim, parting thoughts.
Well, look, man, I like your point of view on this, and I'm gonna say this you're right, because that makes me feel better, right? To think that it's just people just don't know, man. That gives me a better feeling. I have a better weekend because of it, man. But that's it, man. Hey, Joe Rogan, the world does not revolve around him. They want it to. Like, this is their doing. That's why this conversation has happened. I already knew about the N-word with Joe Rogan. I already knew it was years ago. I dealt with that a long time ago. Right. So, like you, man, it is what it is.
Well, I also think whether it's about Joe Rogan or anybody else, listen, folks, and I don't care if you agree with me or not, but I want you to listen. There is, I know it doesn't sell on YouTube, but there's something called nuance. Look it up in the dictionary. So there's a term and a word, and it's called nuance. And part of what that means is you could two things could be true at the same time. So on one end, Joe Rogan, I'm sorry for the people that are diehard and cultists, and if this means I'm not going to get on his show, so be it. Joe Rogan is not a god. Other YouTube hosts that you love and generally jive with them, they're not gods or goddesses if they're man or woman. So you can criticize Joe Rogan or other hosts. Hell, you could criticize me without canceling them. You can say, and I have said it, yeah, I think Joe Rogan has been pretty damn casual in the stuff he says about COVID. And I think he's put out stuff there that is wrong, because as he stated in his Instagram apology, he's not a doctor. He's not a medical person. He doesn't know enough to be making these claims. I don't think he's intentionally put out stuff so that people get killed. I'm not saying that, but because he doesn't understand the complete responsibility that he has with 11 million listeners, he kind of looks at, oh, we're just having a conversation. Well, you're having a conversation to 11 million people during a deadly global pandemic. So the point is, I could make that criticism, whether you agree with me or not, without cancel. I'm not calling for Joe Rogan to be canceling. And I could disagree, or Tim could disagree with Joe Rogan on something where you don't cancel us because we're criticizing somebody that you like. I think online, and it's happened over years, it's become this toxic thing where if you're not feeding me my pre-existing opinions, if you're not validating what I already believe, at least 90% of the time, unsubscribe, cancel. And that's actually a right-wing mentality. Look at Fox News, for example, Tim. When Fox News, I rarely give them credit, but when Fox News was not pushing Trump's Stop the Steal, when they were not pushing that the election was stolen, they lost a huge chunk of their viewers because they started going to Newsmax and they started going to that other crackpot outlet, OANN. So that's generally been a right-wing mentality that if you're not feeding me the red meat, if you're not giving me what I already believe, 100% of the time, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. But it's kind of started to steep in on the left, or whatever we're calling it these days, where if I'm a Joe Rogan fan and you're criticizing him, I'm unsubscribing. Every time I do a Joe Rogan video, we get a lot of people unsubscribing. And I see on Twitter, Jordan, I guess you don't care. I'm like, well, I'm not going to trade my integrity to play for clicks. I'm not going to trade my integrity and hold back what I actually believe so that I don't get certain people to unsubscribe, because those people are cult followers. That's cult-like thinking, in my opinion, to literally abandon ship or to unsubscribe or cancel financial support because you're not hearing what you want to hear 100% of the time. So to me, beyond Rogan, we need to get out of that thinking. And people could disagree on things. It's, if a channel you watch is suddenly like 360-degree turn in a week, that's different. There's probably a reason for that. But you could disagree on things and not, be so tribal and unsubscribe and cancel and this and that. And Joe Rogan can be criticized while at the same time, we're not calling for him to be censored. Tim, where can people find you?
Tim Black Show, Tim Black TV on YouTube. You'll find me there, and Real Tim Black on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks a lot once again, Jordan, for this opportunity, bro.
Yeah, I loved coming on your show last time. I'm happy you could come on. We'll have you back on about other things, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, man.
You too, brother. Peace.
All right. Take care. So that was Tim Black TV. Go subscribe. Honestly, as a white dude, I'm just going to be honest. I wanted to have a black person on to talk about this, particularly Rogan and the N-word. I think, it's not that white people can't have an opinion, but I would rather hear from a black person how they feel about white people using the N-word than me opining and giving hot takes about it. But like Tim and I were talking about, I think the deeper issue is, whatever. Rogan said the N-word. I'm glad he apologized. One could debate why he apologized. Obviously, he's got a lot of pressure on him right now. But to me, the deeper issue is the media, aghast at Joe Rogan saying the N-word. They're perfectly fine with the systemic racism that permeates the United Corporations of America. They're perfectly fine with the massive wealth gap between white and black people. They're perfectly fine with the disproportionate, in a negative way, health outcomes for black people. They're perfectly fine with Biden pledging to give the police more money. They're not covering with the same zeal and fervor another black man murdered by police, Amir Locke in Minneapolis. So they could claim to be aghast that Joe Rogan used the N-word, and I think there's fair criticism of Joe Rogan for doing that. But they don't seem to care as much about all these other things. And that's by design. That is by design. Before I go, if you're new to this channel, subscribe right under the video. Press the subscribe button. When you press the subscribe button, click the bell for all notifications. You subscribe, and then you click that bell, and then choose all notifications so you get notified. We cover a whole lot more than just Joe Rogan. I just broke a massive story 2.5 weeks ago about the Flint water cover-up. Yes, there's still a water crisis in Flint. I've been covering it for 5 years. I've been to Flint nearly 20 times in 5 years. Those trips have been funded by you, Status Coup viewers. We are one of the only outlets that actually leaves the studio, independent outlets, actually leaves the studio and actually goes on the ground and covers the Flint water crisis in Flint. Workers striking. We went to cover the John Deere strikes. We went to Buffalo to cover the Starbucks workers trying to unionize. I've been to Seattle covering Amazon basically creating a homeless utopia. Over the summer, last summer, we went on a 2-week reporting tour. We covered mass homelessness. We covered mass evictions that were happening throughout the pandemic, despite the federal eviction moratorium. We went to Kentucky, where we interviewed Breonna Taylor's aunts and continued covering the cover-up of her murder, because that is a massive police cover-up going on in Louisville, Kentucky, covering up her murder and the police's role in her murder. We went to West Virginia, and we actually did some investigative reporting exposing Joe Manchin's cover-up. We have been Joe Manchin's corruption. We have repeatedly been covering the Amazon workers fighting to form the first ever Amazon union in America. I have been to the Staten Island warehouse at this point 7 or 8 times over the last few months, and they just finally, after 10 months of organizing, were awarded with a union election. So now they're getting an election to possibly hold that union. All of this is incredibly important. There's very few outlets that actually go out on the ground and cover these stories. But to be honest with you, it's also incredibly expensive. It's incredibly expensive because we have no funding from big banks, fossil fuckers, big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, the military industrial complex. We don't take any corporate funding. We are funded by small dollar paid memberships. So whether you agree with every opinion I have or not, I hope you agree we need independent journalists to actually get out there on the ground and cover the controlled demolition of the working class, communities that have been poisoned by their government, like Flint, and the cover-up. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that story is at the top of my Twitter. I just exposed the massive financial fraud that led to the Flint water crisis, and the fact that the current Michigan Attorney General has swept that financial fraud under the rug. That's at the top of my Twitter. There's a whole lot of stories we cover. If you're new to this channel, just go to the homepage. We have our 2021 recap video that it's 10 minutes showing us all over the country on the ground. So I hope, if you can, sign up as a Status Coup member. You can become a member for $5 a month. For as low as $5 a month, you can become a member. That's 16 cents a day. You can become a member to support real on-the-ground reporting. So statuscoup.com/join. statuscoup.com/join. There's the member page, and you just pick whichever option you want. We got $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, or you could become an annual member for $179 annually. Members get perks like our monthly members call through Zoom, which we just did in January. It's usually an hour or two with our members through Zoom. I answer your questions, comments, concerns, give a little behind the scenes of what's going on behind the scenes. We also do behind the scenes videos just for members. And we have a members only Discord channel. So definitely, if you can, if you can't, we totally get it. But if you can, for as low as $5 a month, of course, we love people who sign up at higher levels too. But for as low as $5 a month, you could support investigative and on the ground reporting. Yeah, we're trying to mix it up. So we're also trying to cover, more trendy topics that are, more hot topics like Joe Rogan. But I'm not going to cover those stories and abandon the important investigative and on the ground reporting. We're still going to cover workers fighting back. We're still going to cover the Flint water type stories. We're going to try to cover as many progressive candidates as we can running for Congress, for the House, Senate, on the local level. We're going to try and cover as many things as humanly possible. We actually just broke a story last week that the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, has literally created a shadow state party in Nevada. You know how, if you remember, the progressives took over the Nevada State Democratic Party last year. So progressives took over the Nevada State Democratic Party. They won fair and square the elections. So what has the DNC done? Instead of actually recognizing the new leadership in Nevada of progressives, they just basically created a brand new shadow state party and are working around the elected leadership of the Nevada Democrats because they're progressives. That video is up on the channel. I just did an interview with Leonard Peltier's attorney. Again, the longest serving political prisoner in the United States. 46 years this Native American man has been in prison for a crime he did not commit. He is now 77 years old, and he has been in prison for 46 years, when even the prosecutor who helped put him behind bars has said, we messed up. He must be released. And now he has COVID. And now he has COVID at 77 years old in prison. So you could go check out that interview I did with his attorney. So many different stories we've covered. I just interviewed Christian Smalls, who's one of the leaders of the Amazon workers who are fighting to get a union in Staten Island, New York. I just interviewed him because they finally got a vote. So now they're going to be able to vote for that union. So there's a lot of stories we're covering outside of Joe Rogan and this kind of stuff. I hope you will tune in and go back and watch those videos. And I hope if you can, you'll support us. Again, statuscoup.com/join, $5 a month, $5 a month. You could become a member. And ultimately that comes down to 16 cents a day. So for those that can't afford it, completely understand if you can't, but for those that can, just know your support, it's going to actual on the ground reporting. Another thing we want to do outside of just traveling more and covering things, I'd like to hire more people. We really want to expand. We're looking for ways to get additional funding because I'd like to hire another reporter. I'd like to hire other hosts other than me because I don't want to be the main only host of this channel. I'd like to hire another reporter. I'd like to hire other hosts who could do more, live streams and commentary, not just on politics, but maybe other topics. We'd like to hire producers to, polish up videos and, scout and find more stories for us to cover, investigative stories. We'd like to hire some more marketing people and business types to kind of build this, but we need help. We need help. The other thing, if you're already a member but want to support us further, we have a GoFundMe going, and that GoFundMe, we're proud. We have raised over 4 years. Actually, we launched the GoFundMe in 2018, but over 4 years, let me go to it. GoFundMe, Status Coup. Over 4 years, we have raised $178,000. So we have raised $178,000 in just 4 years. Now, we have pushed this GoFundMe, and then we kind of stop and don't focus on it for a few months, and then we go back to it. It's been an ongoing GoFundMe. Just so you know, that $178,000, we have spent that as we have gone. So we don't have $178,000 in the bank. I sure wish. We have spent that money to travel to Flint, to travel to other cities that we've gone to cover Black Lives Matter protests, to cover union drives, to cover strikes, for the reporting tours we've taken, covering homelessness, evictions, to cover Breonna Taylor's police cover up, her murders cover up, to go to Detroit when General Motors laid off 15,000 workers. We went there in 2019, to go to Seattle to cover homelessness and Amazon's role. We have used that money that you have been so generous to fund us with to report. We have used that money for equipment. That GoFundMe is how we purchased a $25,000 live view. We got a live view is the broadcasting unit that we use to go live in the field. So membership is super, super important. But if you're already a member and you want to support us in other ways, please support our GoFundMe. Colin will put the link in the description right under the video. So if you want to support us in the GoFundMe, any amount really makes a difference. But I don't want you to get it twisted. We don't have $178,000 is how much we have raised over 4 years. That's not how much we have in the bank. So we raised the goal to $250,000 to be able to get more funding for reporting, but also hopefully to be able to hire more people. So support us there if you can. Let me make sure I'm not missing any new members. I also want to read some super chats before I go. Welcome, new Status Coup member Rasha just signed up. Welcome, new Status Coup member Mario. Welcome, new Status Coup member Pamela. And welcome, new Status Coup member Leanne. So that's 4 new Status Coup members over the last few days. So welcome, welcome, welcome. You could sign up just like them, statuscoup.com/join. And again, why I'm asking you so much, you know, I love my friends in progressive media, no disrespect to any of them, but even they have said, you know, we have a higher bar because of the on the ground reporting. So just traveling, just so you know, to cover one story on the ground, it costs us anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 just for a week. For myself, my cameraman, flights, hotels, rent a car, food, last minute if we need to get any new equipment. That costs $3,000 to $5,000 just to take a trip somewhere. For example, when Colin and I went in October and parts of November to Iowa, Illinois, and then Buffalo to cover the John Deere strikes, to cover India Walton's mayoral election, to cover Starbucks workers' fight to unionize. We were there before they won the first union in Buffalo, to cover the Mercy Hospital nurses that were on strike. Just those 2 weeks, that cost us $6,000 to $7,000. And by the way, that's doing it on the cheap. We're not staying at like the Plaza Hotel, trust me. So I hope you'll see. And again, you could go to our homepage on this YouTube channel. You could check out our video from 2021. That's the kind of trailer on our YouTube channel, and see the work we have done. I really hope you'll consider signing up. I really hope you'll consider supporting our GoFundMe because we need all the help we could get to fund this thing. And when I say fund it, again, we're not asking for funding so we could do 200 videos on Joe Rogan in a month. We're asking you to sign up as a member or to support our GoFundMe so that we could expand, so that we could cover more stories on the ground, so we could hire more reporters, producers, marketing people, all of that. And if you haven't seen these videos that I'm referencing, if you haven't seen my interview with Christian Smalls this week, if you didn't see my interview with Leonard Peltier's attorney, they're up on the channel. So you could go check it out right after I sign off here. There's a lot of other great videos up that you could check out. Christian Smalls, Leonard Peltier. I had Steve Grumbine on this week. Tina Desiree Berg joined me. A whole lot of great stuff we've been covering. So thanks for watching this impromptu Saturday live stream. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me just make sure I didn't miss any super chats. Ugly Nacho, $9.99. Thank you, Ugly Nacho. Tommy Tahifi Bayless. Ty Bayless was Status Coup's first ever cameraman producer, $4.99. She was making a point. She wasn't insinuating that if she was getting paid right, that it would be all good with him saying that. Oh, you were talking about India Arie. Sorry, I didn't read that while Tim was there. Flip, 99 cents. Thank you. Charles Calvin, $5. Don't forget Joe Rogan also made the Planet of the Apes comment. I did mention that, which that was frankly disgusting, if you ask me. Jonathan Hammond, $5. Let their own words hang them. No censorship. Hashtag end anti-black systemic racism. Yeah, I mean, I have repeatedly said I'm not calling for Joe Rogan to be deplatformed or censored, but I don't think that means you can't criticize him. So I'm against him being deplatformed or censored, but I also think he should be criticized. Nuance. What can I say? Tommy, again, $4.99. I would like to know what the context is. If he's quoting, that's different. If he's just using the word, that's out. I don't mind who he interviews. Tommy, Pat, new YouTube member. Yes, you could sign up as a YouTube member too, in addition through our website. Sharky Stunt, $1.88. Thank you. Carpe Diem, $5. No Flint fatigue here. Thank you for relentlessly covering Flint. Thank you for continuing to support it. Again, for people that don't understand, and again, if you don't know the story, Colin, if you could put the story that I broke in the description too. I have broken 4 major Flint water cover-up stories over the last 2 years. 4. I broke 1 in Vice News. I broke 2 in The Intercept, and I just broke 1 in The Guardian. Just those 4 stories, I would have never been able to break any of those stories if I hadn't gone to Flint 18 times since 2016. Some of those were when I was with the Young Turks. Most of those were funded by you. Most of those trips I've taken to Flint were funded by you. So how I built the sources to break these stories, how I got the documents, how I got the goods was because I kept going back to Flint. I couldn't fund that on my own. It was funded by you. So that's why it's so important for us to build our membership. And again, if it's not within your budget, I completely understand. But if it is within your budget, ask yourself, is a burnt cup of Starbucks coffee, one of their gourmet coffees, which is like $4 to $5 a day, you could literally replace your Starbucks coffee or whatever you spend $5 a day on or $5 a month on for actual on the ground investigative journalism. And we do a lot of stuff when we're not on the ground. We cover a lot of important stories when we're not out there here interviewing, workers, covering the union drives, covering the strikes, indigenous issues. So it's not only on the ground stuff, because obviously you can't be on the ground all the time. It's not possible. We can't afford that. And, we would exhaust ourselves. So definitely, again, statuscoup.com/join. We really appreciate every single person who has signed up. By the way, since that Flint story broke a couple of weeks ago, since we broke that Flint story, we have gained over 100 new Status Coup members. So we have gained over 100 new Status Coup members just because of that Flint story. And we were able to get on bigger shows. I was able to get on with Brianna Joy Gray on the Flint story. I was able to get on Ring of Fire. I went on with Tim Black, the Vanguard. I was able to get on with Mike from the Humanist Report. I was able to go on I wasn't on Breaking Points, but they covered the story, which I appreciate. There's a couple other places. Savi Sabs, I went on. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. Savi Sabs, is it? So I went on with her, which was nice of her to have me on to talk about it. I went on with Useful Idiots with Katie Halper and Aaron Mate, which I appreciated. So I was on a lot of shows about the Flint story, which gave the Flint story more exposure, but also gave Status Coup more exposure. So not only were we able to get more people to sign up as YouTube subscribers, but we also got more people to sign up as paid members. So it's super important. I don't want to be a broken record, but if you can, please, please, please support us. If you support other places, I'm not telling you to cancel your memberships. All I'm telling you is we actually investigate things. We actually go out there and cover things on the ground. And frankly, there's not a lot of other outlets doing that. There's not a lot of other outlets doing that. So I really appreciate everybody for signing up. Oh, we just got another one. Welcome, Charles John. Welcome, Charles John just signed up as a Status Coup member. So thank you for watching, guys. I think I got every super chat. And yeah. Oh, Colin, should we show the shirts while we have people here? Because we got new shirts at the Status Coup store. So if we could show those, that would be wonderful. You could go to statuscoup.com/store to get your Status Coup swag. We have a United Corporations of America shirt. So there's with the dollar bills of the United Corporations of America. We have a Fossil Fuckers shirt, one of my personal favorites. We also have a quote shirt. So this is a quote that I generally have said, so we made it into a shirt. Most people are not lacking compassion in this country. Most people have no fucking idea what the hell is going on. That's from yours truly. And for members, you got to be a Status Coup member to get this shirt. We have an alternative United Corporations of America shirt with Biden, Kamala Harris, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, where the stars usually are. So that shirt I like too. And for that shirt, you go to statuscoupmember.com/member store, statuscoupmember.com/member store for that alternative United Corporations of America shirt. For the other shirts, statuscoup.com/store, statuscoup.com/store. Did I miss any? Das Bosch Fleiss, €4.99. What does DNC stand for? Dark National Corporation Servers? Yeah, we could probably play around with a lot of different things that the DNC stands for. But I do like Dark National Corporation. Doug, a new YouTube member. Welcome, Doug. So that's true. You could also sign up as a YouTube member. Our preference is for you to sign up through our website because we want as many people as possibly signing up through our website. So you're under our umbrella rather than YouTube or a third party. But whatever floats your boat, you can sign up as a YouTube member if you want. Hold on. Yeah. So that's all I got. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you in advance to anyone who supports us through GoFundMe, to anyone who supports us as a member. I really, really appreciate it. And I should be back with you right on Monday. Thanks again.